Welcome back to the Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Gamby is back. I'm Gamby. Brandon is over in the other side and in the other voice. Whoa. And we do have the little bottom left thingy now. No sad face anymore after that week preview. Brandon does not have those things to make the edit kind of work.
The fact the episode even happened, you should all be very proud.
Yes, I'm proud of you. I'm very proud that you were even able to get it done and do it full screen. That's a big ask, and I'm happy that it got out anyways. Yeah, but I'm back to the annoyance of some, to the joy of others, to the indifference to many. So, unsustainable. So I've been thinking about this for a bit. And we talked about this a little bit before we recorded this, but I'm gonna change up a little bit how I talk about players on this episode. In the past, I think we've gotten maybe a little bit too detailed and into the weeds on statistics and giving you the why of players in a certain section. I'm gonna take a guess though that you people want to hear more takes. You want to get angry at us more. You know, COVID. You want to feel something. That's why you listen to us, right? To feel something, to feel anger at us.
Eichels?
Yeah, or Suslow Eichels. You want to hear Brandon and I fight and feel something, pick a side, you know. So we're going to roll through players a little bit more. We're going to give you more players, more takes with less kind of analysis. Assume that we have done the analysis, right? We might give you one piece that like stands out to us, but in not needing to like dive into the very, very deep nitty gritty, we can go over more players, which I think is at the end of the day more beneficial for everybody than simply jumping into the stats and making it super stat heavy. So let's see how that goes. Specifically this week, I'm doing that because I have a million unsus high. It seems like every player in the league is unsus high this week, except for Zibanejad, who sucks, and I traded away. I'm over. I'm done. I've given up. Can we trade him for Eichel already? Yeah. So that's where I'm at. I'm sad. But hey,
I haven't
Patches
had
is a
any
good return.
Overreactions to anything this week.
Really? Me neither. Well, I don't know why you say that. I haven't overreacted to anything.
Your extreme anger to Zibanejad. I guess it's not overreaction at this point, but
at this point it's not. I think it's justified at this point.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I did well. Okay, so how about you start us off in unsus high?
Sure. The first one's Pavel Zacha.
Yep, makes sense.
Yeah, I have a feeling we're going to have a lot of crossover.
Yeah.
So typically when we did this originally, when we did unsustainable episodes, it was basically us just like doing a ton of research trying to figure out who people might want to ask, or might want to hear about, and now we just ask on Twitter and in Discord. I typically comb through Discord first, and I think Gamby typically combs through Twitter first, but it turns out you guys like to hear a lot about the same people.
Yeah, everyone kind of has the same people on their mind.
Yeah. So Zacha's on here, and there's always like kind of shades of gray when it comes to being sustainably high or unsustainably high or low for that matter. And it's kind of no different with Zacha. There are things to like about Zacha. I mean, if you've been watching him lately, he passes the eye test. His ice time's been up, those types of things. But his line mates and his power play ice time, things like that, are still not super interesting. And he's just kind of playing above his head right now. Like, he's playing significantly better than he did even like a month ago, and for no real discernible reason. So I think, go ahead and ride it while it's hot, although he didn't. This, again, as usual, recording this on Tuesday night, he did not put up any points in the game against the Islanders, but then again, who has? They've had one goal scored against them in the last 3 games. What are you going to do? Oh, no, that never mind. I combine them with somebody else, but they're hard to score on, put it that simply.
That is true.
Maybe it was like 2 goals in the last 3 games, something like that. They haven't let too many goals in recently.
So speaking of kind of playing over their head, I think the person that everyone wanted to hear the most about is Drake Batherson.
Yeah.
And he is absolutely unsus high. I mean, he's relying way too much on goals at the moment over these last few games with an obvious high shooting percentage. And on top of that, the minutes just aren't very great. And so when you look at a guy like Drake Batherson, he screams a good player, passes the eye test, could be very good. It's right now, it's just a little bit ridiculous. I mean, I'd definitely pick him up. I think if he can continue, I think he's more of like a 60-ish, 65 point player when he's doing well. but we know also now what kind of that floor is, and it's pretty low when he's not getting the opportunities. And Ottawa seems to be going through this whole season where it's this wave, right, where they hit this peak and they start playing really well, and then they just dip back down and hit who they should be, and then they go right back up for a little bit and then back down. And it just seems like that's kind of how Ottawa's been trending, and that's kind of what I'd expect with Drake Batherson here.
Yeah, his emergence on the power play is, I mean, nice to see, but a little bit too much. I do like him, though. I like seeing his ice time increase. I think his line, I didn't like it at first, but I think Stützle coming into his own is really helping the both of them.
Yeah, for sure. Although I will say he only has 3 power play points of 10 points total in his last 7 games. So
it's still 30% of his points.
Still,
it's not nothing.
Still a big chunk. Yeah, it's not nothing. Yeah. You're right. You're right.
And considering, I mean, we're talking about Ottawa here. Who do they have? But
Ottawa.
Yeah, man, it's Ottawa. Speaking of Ottawa, my next one, and because they're so similar, is I'm not really going to go into too much detail. Is Thomas Chabot. On the whole, on the season, it's kind of, even on the season at this point, he's a little bit above where I'd expect him to be, but not crazily so. That said, he's definitely doing a little bit too much, especially lately. Again, we're not going to go too deep into everything, but we do talk about IPP on this, and his IPP is way too high. We got this question. I feel like I used to explain it every single time, and I stopped. IPP is individual points percentage. It means if a goal is scored on the ice, whether or not you were a part of it and how often you were. So somebody that has 50% IPP, for example, is in on 1 of every 2 goals scored when they're on the ice, whether that's an assist or a goal. Typically, for a really good defenseman, they'll be about 50%. That's where Chabot was like a 45% last season. He's 50% on the season, but over the last month, he's like 60 or 70%, which is, you don't see defensemen get that high pretty much ever. Yeah. So expect some regression, just out of kind of like the whole team. Like, it feels like there's the core of players on Ottawa that have really been picking up lately. Batherson, Stützle, Chabot, not so much Tkachuk, because I think he's just kind of like in his own little world all the time, and nothing applies to him. But for everybody else there, like, expect a bit of regression.
Both the Tkachuks honestly kind of live in their own world.
Yeah, it's like both the team around them, and then Tkachuk over here somewhere.
And then Tkachuks. Yeah, the Tkachuks are their own enigma. Yeah. Speaking of enigmas, the Los Angeles Kings are kind of good, I guess.
I don't know.
I don't know, but one of the biggest benefactors of that is Drew Doughty right now. He's killing it. Absolutely just killing it. It is a little high, though. I would not be trading for Doughty at the moment. I'd be wary of anybody trying to sell you Doughty. He is unsustainably high at the moment. I still think he's going to have a great rest of the season. I think with them clicking and with kind of the power play doing better, that we're going to see Doughty maybe be 55-ish point defenseman again. 50-ish, yeah. I think maybe 50 is his floor at this point. Honestly, a lot would have to go wrong for him to get down to that 50.
On an 82-point season, yeah.
Yeah, on an 82-game season. So I would be wary of someone trying to ship you Doughty. I don't think I'd necessarily be trading him away, even though he's unsus high, unless someone comes knocking with a really good offer. But yeah, he's nonetheless unsus high.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what has happened with their power play, but they really have seemed to figure it out too much, though, honestly. They're too good on the power play right now. My next one is Evander Kane. And we got to, this seems to be like more of a team-based thing, right? Like, you can kind of talk about Ottawa, you can kind of talk about LA, a lot of the guys that are all sort of packaged together in why they're unsustainable one way or sustainable. Kane's no different. You know, we're seeing it happen with also Meyer, I think, is the next biggest one, and guys like Balsers and that have been mentioned in other episodes. But yeah, basically everything's just going right for him right now. I do like seeing the massive increase in shot production from him over the last few games. That's always fun and kind of what you expected of Evander Kane, even if it's coming at the cost of hits for some reason. But yeah, they're just getting super lucky right now, and getting a pretty healthy amount of power play ice time, which they usually were not getting. I don't know if you can call that sustainable or not. whether you think the Sharks are going to continue to get power plays. It always seems a little bit hard to predict. But even if they did continue to sustain this sort of power play pace, I don't think that they would be seeing the results that they're seeing right now. So I do expect him to slow down a bit.
Yeah, and I think along those, and in the same vein, pretty much, Logan Couture, that's who I had as well here. He's benefiting pretty much in the exact same way as Evander Kane, and is kind of suffering for that same unsustainability, but at the same time, good player. I'm not going to be doing anything with him. He very well could be a point-per-game player rest of season, but I think expecting what he's doing right now is just a bit ridiculous, right? And that's what I think this whole episode is about. I think at the end of the day, this whole episode mostly is about calibrating expectations and what you should think about for a player. Are they someone I should be trading for, or is someone I should be buying low for? What should I do with them? So that's Logan Couture. And then I have one more. Not one more. I have another one here because Couture just kind of piggybacks off Kane, and that's Colin Blackwell on the Rangers. Actually, a little bit surprising. I do like him because he's playing decent minutes. His minutes have gone up recently to 16
I picked him
minutes.
up in 2 leagues. So interesting to see where you go with this.
Yeah, he's interesting. I don't think he's sus high. I think he's unsus high because a lot of things are just going too right. His on-ice shooting percentage is really high. His own shooting percentage is high. That being said, I do like him. He is getting put into good situations. He's getting very high offensive zone starts, so most of those minutes that he's playing are all in the offensive zone. So I like that, right? There's a lot of things to like with Colin Blackwell. The thing is to me that right now he's just way too unsustainably high. And the thing is with Colin Blackwell, I feel they can sever everything that's making him good right now very easily. A lot of things can just, go haywire very, very quickly for him to where he all of a sudden becomes useless or valueless. So that's why he's on Unsus High, not necessarily because I don't think he's a pickup, but because I think he should have a short leash, and I think he can quickly kind of turn it around and all of a sudden be not great.
Yeah, he's got to be the biggest benefactor of Panarin's absence. The funny thing is, I mentioned this on Monday, is I don't think this is true anymore, but as of, I guess, of Monday, he had more points than Mika Zibanejad. He had 7 to Zibanejad 6.
End me. Just sadness.
But
it's on it.
If this is, I feel like a lot of people have no idea who we're talking about. He's kind of just come out of nowhere recently. But if you're in a really deep league, you should be looking at him. He shoots and he hits. I think those are kind of 2 major things to be thinking about.
Yeah, and
because he
on
does
Yahoo,
put it together.
On Yahoo, he is left wing, right wing. Now that I should say, he only had a hit tonight, didn't do anything else. Yeah, and a 3-2 win against Buffalo. So of course there's that. But so like I said, that's the thing, is the leash needs to be low with him. Yeah, sure.
He crap. I had something else to say about him and it's gone now. On Fantrax, he's got center eligibility too for some reason, so he's triple eligible.
That's nice.
So yeah, a little bit of bonuses. In fact, both the leagues I have him in are Fantrax leagues, both because those are the deepest leagues I'm in. Yep. My last one here is Brett Pesce. I'm not even really going to go into it. There's nothing. There's nothing. It's just what's happening right now doesn't make sense. Forget about it. He's not. He's far away from being like an offensive dynamo or something. Yeah. I have a feeling I think a couple people intentionally asked me as trolls, and then a couple people asked me like for real. So I don't know where you guys landed on this, but no to Pesce. He's like 19% owned, by the way.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. Anytime you say Dynamo, is it bad that I think of Dynamo Kiev, the soccer team? I don't know why. I don't know. I always think of soccer team. It's completely pointless to this episode, and I don't know why. But I kind of wanted to just put that out there. I want to just say what I'm thinking. Maybe I shouldn't say what I'm thinking. That's a bad idea. Okay, my last one. Should not. My last one is Phil Kessel. He might be right now, over the last 6 games he's played, one of the most unsustainable players I've ever seen. From a stats perspective, I mean, it's insane. 40% shooting, okay, which honestly not crazy. Definitely have seen crazier, but 100% IPP over 6 games. and a 19.5 on-ice shooting percentage. So he's getting in on everything, and it's unsustainably high on-ice shooting percentage. It's ridiculous. And, mind you, all his assists are secondary. Every single one.
Why wouldn't they be?
Of course they are. So Phil Kessel is going to fall off a cliff, okay? Full stop. Kessel will fall off a cliff from his 109-point pace at the moment over his last 6 games. That will fall off because he cannot keep doing this with only secondary assists and with 20% on-ice shooting and insane shooting himself. This is going to come down. So just be ready for that.
Yep. All right, I'm out. So if you want to move to Unsustainably Low,
let's do it.
My first one is Aaron Ekblad. The biggest thing to point to with him is that like everything has pretty much been the same as it has been. There's not been like a dramatic shift. He's actually shooting a bit more over the last couple of weeks than he has been on the season. There's nothing really out there that scares me, other than like he hasn't been on the power play points. He's just like he's been unlucky, and that's kind of it. Yeah, I mean, there's really not much more to go into it. He's going to be fine. It's just been a bad stretch.
Yeah, I agree with that. My next one here is Victor Golovsin. He did get a point tonight against the Rangers, because who doesn't get a point against the Rangers? And yeah, his shooting is still, a little bit ridiculous, but he's been suffering a lot from really low on-ice shooting, which I think you just need to watch the Sabres to understand that that's the case. The Sabres really, and if you have any kind of Sabre player, they benefit off the power play. Unless your name is Sam Reinhart, in which case it doesn't really matter. You just kind of get points regardless, while nobody else does. But Victor Olofsson, I think, will turn it around. I think that at the end of the day, what do you expect with Olofsson? You're not expecting a big point guy overall, but you're expecting a really good goal guy and a good goal guy on the power play as well. And I think that'll continue to be the case. I think he's going to continue to produce on the power play, and they'll continue to get points there. But I think that as we see the Sabres start to kind of regress at 5-on-5, we saw this last season too, right? We saw last season when on 5-on-5, the Sabres started to go down and not be as good. Olofsson and company really suffered. And so I think, and if they're not doing it on the power play either, then you really start to see a little bit of a slump. So I think that I'd be patient with Olofsson here. I know it's been a rough stretch, and it's been a rough stretch in general for multiple Sabres, but I would be patient with him.
Yeah. My next one is Brian Rust, who I think already redeemed himself here Tuesday night.
I had him as well.
Yeah, he's a good player. I feel like because he doesn't have sort of the brand name that some of the players around him do, that like people quickly give up on him. I mean, he is like a recently good player who's like older, but he's locked in. I don't really see him, being the type that they're going to shift off to the third line or something, or to take off power play 1 for an extended period of time or anything like that. And the one thing that I thought was kind of interesting is a lot of feedback about how he got moved to the second line, and is that bad for him and this and that. And it's like, that's where he was when he did all his damage last year. I know that like there's a lot of panic around Malkin as well, for better reasons, honestly, than there have been around Rust. But I'm confident in Brian Rust. I would not be looking to sell him low or drop him or anything crazy like that. If I have him, odds are he's going to be on my team at the end of the league.
Yes. I mean, I still have him. I'm still holding on. I have him in 2 leagues. I absolutely love Brian Rust. And I mean, look, at the end of the day, especially in a Cats league, I mean, he gives you so much more than just points too. So even when he's not putting up points, he's still doing a lot for you. And a lot of times when you look at players putting up a lot of points or a lot of shots, for example, you should have more patience, because a lot of times when shots are being put on net, it means they're in offensive situations. It means there's still a part of the offense. Things just aren't really happening for them. And so you can have a little bit more patience there. And Brian Rust, to me, is a guy that fits that mold. Okay, my last one is Brendan Gallagher. Now, the Habs in general are in a really rough spot right now. But Brendan Gallagher is probably one of the people that is hurting the most. Now, there is one thing that I really don't like about Gallagher, and it's something I don't like on the season at all, and that's his minutes. Consistently around 15 minutes on the season. That's
I have him on
just
Sus
not.
Low, by the way. So.
Do you really? I debated Sus Low versus Unsus. I think that the thing I see is I could see Gallagher getting back up to like a 50-ish point guy, and that with his shots and his hits does make him pretty serviceable in a league. That's the only reason I had him on Unsus Low, is that I think in many leagues he could still be very serviceable. In points leagues,
he's a guy that I'm putting. He's actually very similar to last week. I put Kadri on, of course, who then had
of course goes off.
But I put Kadri there, but on the same week I also picked him up. So just because somebody's sustainably low doesn't mean somebody should be dropping or anything like that. It just means that my expectations have changed in a downward way.
So you're saying we shouldn't have quickly rushed and dropped Eichel last week, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, we shouldn't have dropped Kubalik the first week of the season, which we did.
Yeah, we did that. Yeah, we did. That was bad. That was a bad move.
He's playing like 14 minutes a game playing power play 2, but it turns out it was all he needs is 14 minutes a game, and power play 2 is apparently better than the top power play. So
the Nick Schmaltz move. Who would have known? Who would have guessed? Okay, do you have another Unsus Low?
I do. Carter Hart, who just came off of a bad game again.
Of course.
I think the thing that more than perhaps his save percentage and kind of the direction of his game this season, I think most people are worried about Brian Elliott taking more shares from him in the net. I don't really trust Brian Elliott long term. I think that, especially with Hart having another bad game here, that may be the case for a little bit, where they kind of switch off and do a 50-50 split. But I do think that Hart is going to get the majority of the net. I've said a few times that I think the future for NHL goaltenders is for there to be a really strong starter and a really strong backup. And I know Elliott's played well this season, but I don't think he's the really strong backup for Hart. And that he's probably better off getting some more games under his belt. I mean, he's played 13 games this season. Hasn't been very great, but honestly, like, the team is giving him plenty of opportunities. He's just struggling for whatever reason in mid-danger saves, which are like, they're like the traditional, like when you look at somebody's save percentage, that's roughly what their mid-danger saves are like typically. Maybe a little bit lower, but all of his numbers are totally good except for his mid-danger. For some reason, he's just not good at like the shots from the circles or whatever. But
yeah,
I think, and actually that he had one going on him today, but I do think he'll figure it out. He's clearly the future in the net there, and I think that the Flyers being a not puck dominating team lately has not been helping him. But I do think that they're a pretty good squad, and they should be able to get things figured out.
I almost put him on Sus Low.
Yeah.
I almost put him on Unsus Low too.
It's definitely closer. But
I think the thing is, at the end of the day, I don't think he's Sus Low. I also don't think he's Unsus Low. I think he's just an average goaltender this year.
Yeah.
And I think what's happening in the league, and this is why I think I've been talking a little bit about we need to, one, adjust expectations, and two, we also probably need to think about points in the future if you're in a points league with goaltenders, is the NHL is becoming more and more high scoring, right? And the average goaltender now is becoming less and less interesting in fantasy. It's becoming more and more difficult to own when you really look at it. And that's something that, with a guy like Carter Hart, is like he's not doing great, but he's also average. Like, just straight up average. And that, honestly, now is just not good enough in fantasy. And I think part of it is that we have guys like Varlamov, like Vasilevsky, like Hellebuck that skew things, but they're few and far between. Most goaltenders tend to be more towards that average. And honestly, this year, like I said, the average is just not good enough. It'll lose you a lot of weeks. So just something to think about when it comes to goaltenders and kind of the future of what we think about with goaltenders in fantasy, and what that kind of means. So let's move on now. Let's go into Sustainably High. Now, I'm going to start really quickly with someone that was on here last week. We still got a lot of questions about. People were asking if his production can continue. And I'm going to keep it up and say yes. And that is Vincent Trocheck.
Yeah.
He is unsustainable. I think that things that are happening, not ideal, right? Like, he's a high shooting percentage, relying heavily on goals at the moment. He has no assists over his last 5 games, but he has 5 goals. But he's still sus high to me and unsus low at the same time. I mean, his on-ice shooting percentage over the last, and again, not always going to get into stats, but with him, I think it's important. He's playing 20 minutes a game and has an on-ice shooting percentage of 4.7%. That's insanely low, especially on a Carolina team. His average on the season is 10.6. Last year was 11%. And for it to then you go out to his last 8 games played, and the on-ice shooting percentage still stays low at 7.8%. That's quite a few goals that aren't going in on the ice when he's around, and he gets in on a lot of points. He gets in on 70% of points that are scored. So if you up that on-ice shooting percentage to that 10% range, I can absolutely see him keep that 70 to 75 point pace. So I think he's both sus high and actually a little unsus low, whereas his goals are unsus high. So he's everything in between, but at the end of the day, he is someone I'm not getting rid of.
Yeah. I think we're going to have to stop saying sus and unsus so much, because I know it bothers some people that they're not real words. So I'll try.
I'll try.
My next one for Sustainably High
is
Nick Leddy, weirdly enough.
Interesting.
Now, there are definitely things about him that are not sustainable. The fact that somehow the Islanders had the best power play in the month of February, not sustainable. But what is sustainable about what's going on with him is they are deciding to have a true number 1 power play on Long Island, and he's a part of it. Those two things are not for nothing. That was the key thing that you're always looking for is that top power play deployment for an offensive defenseman. Leddy's been a serviceable defenseman before when given this opportunity. We'll see how long that lasts. He's an aging defenseman that is not exactly the future of the Islanders or anything, but while he's hot, I don't really see a reason not to grab him if you're looking for power play point upside or whatever. He's not the most exciting player in the world. He's more of a points league player because he doesn't really get you any peripherals, but I semi-buy that he'll continue to produce points. Obviously nowhere near the production he's gotten lately, but I think they'll continue to come.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's really interesting what's happening over there, actually. Such a change. Such a drastic change from before. My last one is also a defenseman, actually. Adam Fox. Sus high. I want to trade for him. I want him.
Yeah.
Sure, the on-ice shooting percentage is high. Sure, his IPP isn't as great as it could be. But at the end of the day, the thing I like is very low secondary assists. So most of them are primary. He drives play. His shots have actually gone up a little bit as of late. His minutes are still insanely high. He's probably, at worst a 40-point defenseman, but I definitely can see stretches at times when he could be, 45, 50-point defenseman, maybe 50, 55, especially when Panarin is back and if they start to click like they have been recently more so. So I do like him a lot, and I do think Adam Fox is sus high, and I wouldn't necessarily be shopping him unless someone is really willing to offer something good.
Yep. My last one here is Tim Stützle.
Stützle.
He's mostly here because we wrote him off pretty early on the season, but for reasons that have changed. So the main reason that we weren't as high on him as some other shows were was because, ice time, kind of the same reason that Zegras was a drop candidate on Monday, despite the fact he could definitely be a pickup at some point. It's just, if they're going to be given a deployment that is not going to allow for fantasy production or production in general, I'm not waiting to see that change. I don't know that the ceiling is going to be high enough for me to, essentially submarine my team for X amount of weeks until they decide to give him 60 minutes a game. It's just not worth it. There's no real reason to hold Zegras if he's going to be playing 12, 13 minutes a game. It doesn't matter how good he is. It's just, you can't produce with that. Same deal with Stützle. Now he's getting legit minutes. He's getting power play 1 ice time, and he's shooting a lot. He's shooting a lot. So I've changed my tune on him, but really it's the team that's given him the opportunity that he didn't have at the beginning of the season, and that is why he's on here now. I actually don't think I have like maybe one share of Stützle, but I think that he should be targeted now as opposed to having been held since the beginning of the season. I assume if you held Stützle since day one, you're probably in bad shape at this point, at least in a redraft league.
Yeah, sometimes you've got to let go of guys. And like the guy, Stützle is a good example of someone that, you know what, yeah, maybe you missed out on him, but at the same time, you can't holding on to him as well during that stretch when he was bad. Like, what are you going to do?
Now, like, whatever. Like, it's not like he's a top 30 guy or something. He's just like a player that is rosterable for now, unless they decide to bring him back down to 12 minutes.
I will say I like him a lot more in points leagues. I mean, even in Cats leagues right now, his shots are ridiculous. But in points leagues, more than anything, I like him a lot at the moment. So definitely something to look at there. So let's move on to Low, Sustainably Low. My first one is someone that I put on drop candidates, but like apparently no one listened to drop candidates or missed it, and that's Dylan Larkin. I thought I was clear.
He's also out. So
yeah, he's also out. But at this, like I dropped him, I want to say 2 weeks ago or something, and I had him on drop candidates. Like, I don't even need to go into it. Detroit sucks. No, you don't need him. Sure, put him on IR plus, whatever, if you have it, I guess, in IR, but sure, whatever. But to me, he's just not worth it anymore. Nobody on Detroit is worth it. No one.
Yeah, that's probably
maybe
right.
Tyler Bertuzzi.
Is he alive? I don't even know who he is anymore.
I don't know. I can't believe Detroit is going to waste away Dylan Larkin. It makes me so irrationally angry that they're going to just waste away Dylan Larkin's like entire career. It's just, it's so frustrating. Anyways, who's your next player?
Have fun. My next one is Ivan Provorov. He's on here because Ivan Provorov is an all-around defenseman, but I don't think that he is who the Flyers should be looking for to be an offensive defenseman. He shouldn't be their quarterback, I don't think. His IPP is not different than usual. He's about 40%, maybe a little bit under. It's kind of what he always is. So he's been given plenty of opportunities to run the power play in the last couple of years. It hasn't really been, maybe it's worked despite him, but he never gets in on the points for the most part. So I don't know. I don't know that Philly really has the answer there right now. They've got Gustafsson, who's like a B grade QB that sometimes flashes. They've got Gostisbehere, who mattered for one season, and then I guess they leave Provorov up there, but I feel like there's always this expectation for him. And I'll be honest, I had it a little bit this season where I was like, oh, he's likely to get power play 1 the whole season. On a team that has a lot of firepower, and it just hasn't mattered. So I think if you're, especially in points leagues, if you're thinking like, I drafted Provorov in the 9th or whatever, that seems like a high pick. Maybe I should be holding it. No, you don't. You can move him if you need to.
I remember one of the things we don't talk about enough, or we've actually never talked about, and I'm shocked you've never given me crap for this, is when we did our dynasty draft. It was the year after Gostisbehere's incredible season. And I took him, I think, 3rd round.
We can look it up. I'm curious now.
I think I took him the 3rd round in a dynasty league. Safe to say, I'm not doing so well in that dynasty league. Oh, I also took Middlestat like 8th round or something. Yeah. Was not my best draft in existence. I will tell you that. I do not get enough flack for that draft because that was not great. I do have Quinton Byfield now and Kako, who, well, Kako's been good, huh? Oh, I hate my team. Okay, my next one, Ryan Ellis. I know your team is great. Ryan Ellis is the next one here. Low. So many better defenders out there. I'd rather have no defender than him at this point. No shots, splitting the power play, no peripherals either. There's nothing there. The points aren't there. You can safely drop Ryan Ellis, and he's very, very well in the camp of Low.
Yep.
Sustainably low. I keep saying it.
Yep. I've got two Arizona players next. Christian Dvorak and Nick Schmaltz.
Oh, Ryan Ellis is actually dead, like literally dead. So, never mind. You know what? I blame the people on Twitter for telling me. I totally forgot about that. And then everyone on Twitter was like, "Oh, talk about Ryan Ellis. Ryan Ellis, he's dead. So he's sus low, quite literally sus low. So there you go. Oops, my bad.
Well, I've got two Arizona players, and I think Arizona in general is low if Garland's out. Like I get that Dvorak was making like scoring goals like crazy with like weirdo line mates, but that finally came to pass as like not a thing, which of course it's not. His shots have come down, his points have come down. He's playing, at least he's got Keller on his right wing now, but like Keller was somebody you had on the waiver wire all season last season, right? He's still not like a long-term hold in my opinion, despite his ownership right now. Nick Schmaltz is Nick Schmaltz. He's always been like up and down and streaky. He might be the streakiest player in the league, although Batherson is starting to challenge that. But neither one of those guys would I would only even look at them if they're playing with Garland. Garland is the only player I'm really super interested in that on that team. And Chikrin, I guess.
Yeah, Chikrin. I mean, you screamed Chikrin's name last year or last week. You definitely like Chikrin just a bit, a little
and
bit.
Last year, more than
and last year. Okay, I have one more myself, and I saved the best for last. Taylor Hall.
I'm not sure you didn't. Oh yeah. I mean, I think yeah.
Yeah.
I want to say I had him last week even, but
no, we kind of briefly mentioned it, but I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to put him here. I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready to put Taylor Hall on this list. That's it. Taylor Hall is playing 18 minutes. He has no goals in his last 10 games. In a way, sure. That's unsustainable.
I had Eichel.
You had Eichel last week, which is ridiculous. That was a little much.
Love it.
I think there's a few things. He's not getting on the power play points. I think this is who Taylor Hall is. Like, I think Taylor Hall is a 65-point guy at best. That's it. What we saw in New Jersey was an anomaly, and we saw an anomaly in Edmonton that 1 year too. I think this is who he is.
The shots coming down is not helping for sure.
Oh, that's definitely not helping either. But I think at the end of the day, like, I think we're expecting Taylor Hall to be this like point per game person. But honestly, we talked about this last week, like most of his career, he hasn't been a point per game player.
We were, to be fair, expecting him to play with Eichel the whole season, but
yeah, I'm so low on Hall. If you can get something for him, I would definitely try to just shop. Because
I'm not that low on him. Oh, I mean, I'm low on him, but not to the extent that I would just like try to let him go for nothing.
Here's a good question. Who are you lower on? Zibanejad or Hall? Just not from like a production standpoint, as like a you're done with them standpoint.
I don't know, about the same.
Yeah, and I'm pretty done with Zibanejad. That's where I'm at. I just traded away Zibanejad. If I had Hall, I'd be doing the same thing. I'd be shipping him for kind of whatever I can get. I'm not high on it, and if the rumors of Eichel leaving are true, that's even worse. It could only get worse.
Although Hall is also going to be leaving, but not this season maybe. Although maybe he will. Who knows? Why would they keep him?
Yeah,
he's a rental after all.
So, anyways,
it actually makes sense for them to trade Hall with salary retention or something.
It does. It does make a lot of sense. Just get him out of there, and then he can go be a 60-point player somewhere else. Okay, so you have a few more, I'm guessing. So how about? You only have one more. Okay.
Mike Hoffman, he's back.
Yay!
Third
back
line
where
again.
He belongs.
Second power play, or rather, I don't know what the top power play is anymore, but not enough power play time. And Tarasenko coming back is not going to help. I don't think.
No,
I think it's going to make things worse for him.
It's going to make things way worse. He was supposed to be the stopgap for Tarasenko.
Right.
And and that's not what he is now.
Nope.
So Yeah. Hoffman, we've been low on him before. I am still low on him. So, is what it is, unfortunately.
Yep.
Unfortunately. Okay, well, there you go. That is the episode. That is your unsustainable episode. Hopefully this was good. Also, by the way, Martin Nakash, Sustainably High. I forgot to put him on there. I meant to talk about him, but I think Nakash is Sustainably High. I'm high on him. Big fan of Nakash. I drafted him. Speaking of Dynasty, I did draft him in that league. But yeah, I do like Nakash a lot, and I think he sells high, and I just wanted to put that here at the tail end for the people that stayed on. So, thank you for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Yep, thanks for listening.